All right. Coming on here after, well, roughly a month. Yep, been about a month. Dude's been busy. Sorry about the burp. I just had a drink. And, it's been a while because, like I said, it's been busy. I'm looking at this unfinished Samuel L., and normally I would be morose over that. That said, um, your man's been on a bit of a journey. And for the most part, my family knows, but a lot of other people may not know necessarily. I am currently well in recovery from a surgical procedure. I've been, for the better part of 3 years, trying to get a gastric sleeve. The process to get approved for that is pretty lengthy because when they start you out, you got to lose a little bit of weight initially, and then they make you go through some certain things so that they know that you're mentally sound to do this, so that they know that you're going to commit. Um, and really, I mean, weight has been a struggle forever. I just don't have a very good, or did not have a very good relationship or understanding with food. People have predilections, addictions, things like that, and they're often connected to something else. Mine was just kind of a lack of really knowing any better. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. That is putting it mildly. Um, in any case, after going through that initial weight loss, uh, staying committed for months upon months with um, all of the following going in regularly to see a dietitian, being weighed in every so often, making sure that I wasn't backsliding, which I'm not gonna lie, there was a couple of times where I did backslide. I gained weight back, and it sucked, and I had to restart. Um, but eventually, I was able to get in all my dietitian meetings, um, meet the weight requirements for more than a couple of weeks at a time, and also uh, able to finally nail down all of the required things that I needed to have in place in order to get the procedure. So I went ahead and did that, and um, I went through Dr. Anwar I'm in Washington State. I live in Eastern Washington, so I chose to travel to the west side. Specifically, got my procedure done in Federal Way by Dr. Anwar, who he's right up there with, a person who's very familiar with the procedures. The particular one I got was called the gastric sleeve, and it was just about 2 weeks yesterday, and so they after the surgery is over, after you're in recovery, you have to go back to food in stages. Um, and so they kind of limit what you're going to have. For 2 weeks, I've been kind of eating popsicles and pudding, a lot of water, um, sugar-free tea, things like that. Not a lot of variety, but I haven't, since I got that procedure done, I haven't had the same kind of cravings. Um, they're just not there. I don't have appetite the same way I did. Um, and it's pretty nice to be getting used to and knowing that it's having a positive impact. Um, I know I can already see on the camera I'm looking in, and face is already a little bit slimmer than my last broadcast. Um, and I can dig that. I really can. Um, and I'm still messing around a little bit here with the broadcast, trying to get things lined up so I can keep this going the way I want it. But I started working a different job too. So aside from all that new stuff that I've been going through the last couple of weeks, I also started as a behavioral health associate, and just taking care of people that need taken care of. And it's been pretty sweet, a lot better paying than my last gig, for damn sure. So this has been kind of a sweet spot to land, and I'm pretty thankful for it. I've got a lot of family that helped out and, stuck with me through this. And it's been about as soft a landing as somebody could hope for. But yeah, they're still a little awkward about me. I invite my kids over to dinner, and they feel weird about eating in front of me. I have to explain, like, no, you're here so we can socialize. This is what we usually do. Don't feel bad for eating in front of me. I can't partake, and that's fine, but you got to remember, I kind of don't want to. I just want to see you. And so that's going to take some getting used to for a lot of people, because I've always been kind of a heavy portions type of guy. But yeah, it's a good thing to have gone through, experienced. I think the day of surgery, we started at 5 in the morning. Got me all prepped. Had to wipe down with some weird stuff that didn't please my nostrils at all, but I guess that if that's the worst thing that went on prior, that last week and a half, I can live with it. But ultimately, what they do with the gastric sleeve is they go in, and they had to put about 5 holes in my abdomen, the panza, and I'm rubbing it, and it's noticeably smaller now. Fat guys rub their bellies. It's just a thing. You don't got to be ashamed. That said, it's more for the health stuff. But they took out, according to them, about 80% of the physical mass of my stomach. And when they took that out, it left it so that I'm able to eat about probably a half cup at most of something, and I can't do it at the same time while I'm drinking. Since yesterday, and it was pretty big drop in weight right away. I mean, I was down 30 pounds from in 2 weeks, and so it's rapid. But the first food that I had last night, I had a little bit of tuna and some some roasted nori, the little seaweed strips packs that you can buy at Costco, and just a little bit of tuna mixed with soy sauce and a tiny bit of mayonnaise. And it was good, but I couldn't hardly eat any of it. I got maybe 4 or 5 bites in. Same thing with yogurt. And these are just different meals I've been having. Like just a little bit ago, I had my first. What do we got here? I went to Costco and I bought some turkey burgers, and I just put it in a fry pan and roasted it up. But I'll show you where I had to stop. So sorry, Sam. So I got about halfway in, and that took about 30 minutes. It was delicious, but I have no more room. I might be able to finish it before the end of the night. I'm not terribly sure. Most of what I've been eating and drinking. Oh, hey, Baba. Little man got on camera finally. Hi. So now I feel like a jerk because I know he wanted the rest of that burger patty. But it's a turkey burger. And, I'm supposed to be eating a lot of protein. I left out that a lot of what I eat is protein shakes. The best ones that I've had are the Oikos ones, the yogurt ones. And they're, I don't know, it must be that probiotics that they naturally have. It allowed me to avoid some of the problems for the most part that wind up happening after this procedure. A lot of people that I was reading reported some pretty stout diarrhea and things like that. I had it maybe for a day. It did feel like I got beat up in the sides of my ribs for probably 2 days. But the night of the surgery, the evening, I was able to get up and walk around. It was a little bit labored, but the next day I was not real limited. So it was about a day of very inconvenient stuff, limited mobility, and then the day after that, so second day after surgery, I was just walking around like normal. And, I could feel that something had happened, but the pain had dissipated to the point where I didn't need painkillers. So, I've got almost a full bottle of that shit left. It was a little bit painful being unable to take Adderall. This is also the first day that I was able to take my dose since the surgery. And I couldn't do that because it's kind of unpredictable how my prescriptions were going to work, especially with losing that little bit of digestive tract. So they want you to heal up as much as possible before you start getting into that stuff. So luckily today was a day off, and I went ahead and took it earlier today, and it has cleared up a lot of clouds. A lot of my thinking process is back on track. Hence me being able to actually broadcast today. And, I could have just gone right into art, which, I'm 100% for. I've got my goddamn pens and shit right here, ready to throw down. But, this was kind of just wanted to dip my toe and get back on. I'm going to take a moment and just make sure I'm on every platform correctly. Because like I said, we're rusty. We are majorly rusty. And it's already 9. My man's got to get up at 5 a.m. to get to the workplace. and tomorrow is the 4th, so I'm driving out to the res to visit some relatives, and we're gonna, visit and talk family shit and have a grand old time in this foul year of our Lord, 2026. Um, but all in all, it's been pretty pleasant. Um, I've been able to keep up at work what I do. We've got a lot of walking, so I'm back and forth up the unit all day. I think the first day I went back, um, I was able to walk the pretty much whole 8-hour shift. Um, and there's always adjustments that have to be made. One of the real dangers of having this much of your digestive tract taken out is you really have to keep track of your liquids. You have to intentionally drink all day, because it is pretty easy. Now, I was pretty resistant to it because I was not drinking a whole lot for about 3 days. And then, it just happened. One day I just dropped out. I was all discombobulated and I couldn't make it into work. So I left everybody hanging. Didn't feel great about that. But, recalibrated, reset myself, sucked on popsicles all evening, had water, had tea, made sure I was getting sports drinks. Yeah, just taking it day by day and looking for all the positive changes that are sure to come in the next few months. That said, I am going to have to get used to working the full-time gig where I've actually got to be kind of on point. Well, fully on point. And present and invested. So, I think in the next few months, I am going to make sure that I'm getting on regularly. I'm actually trying tonight to record on Substack, which it looks like it might be working out okay. But, we'll see. Substack is pretty new to me. And aside from all the obvious stuff, like I usually do some political commentary while I'm doing artwork. But there's other stuff I want to do, other projects as far as art and as far as getting on here and doing, live stuff. Still looking for somebody to partner up with and go live with. And, progress is sure to be had. I know that my computer struggles a little bit sometimes to get everything cleaned up and sent out over the interwebs. That's partially because I have a just absolutely inadequate, and I appreciate it because a buddy gave it to me. And at the time, I couldn't afford anything better. But I have an inadequate graphics card. So once I have a better graphics card, that's going to shape stuff up. I'm going to go ahead and get me a wireless headset and probably some kind of, I don't know, maybe a GoPro or something so you can see stuff from my view when I'm doing Mr. Man over here and other works like it, because I found some materials I'm going to order. Larger pieces are something I'm going to make, and I can't forget that I have a pretty good background for digital painting and art, so I'm going to get into that. What the hell? Oh, you turned the water off just now? Okay. Now, if you come back for art, are you coming back for art tonight? Okay. Well, I'm going to bed in like under an So, if you want to come back for art, you just got to keep it mellow, which you always are, but I want to hear farting from upstairs and shit. Okay? All right. I just got a visit from the honey badger. The reason I call my daughter the honey badger is because she is unbothered by tons of shit. As are people who walk their own path, typically. Um, but getting back to it, yeah, I just want to invest some more in a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of activity. There's going to be a lot of content because, life is not one dimensional. Aside from the paintings and stuff, I have this situation where it's going to be a pretty big change because honestly, I think the heaviest I was as an adult was, it was over 10 years ago. I lost a lot of weight, probably over 100 pounds, but I was at about 520. So 520 pounds, that's something where you're essentially paralyzed. I was younger and I was closer to back when I was like powerlifting and shit, so I was able to kind of make it work, but I was also probably in a lot of denial about it. And yeah, that's just kind of where it's at. This is also going to be a part of my broadcasts, aside from, all the advocating for, healthcare reform. I think that it's become even more apparent in my capacity at my job, wherein a lot of people are coming in for treatment for addiction, mental health issues. And when somebody is on the ropes like that, I think the last thing that we should be telling them is, well, your insurance policy doesn't want to pay out for this. I think that's rotten. I think it's a goddamn travesty. And I think it's anybody who says, well, if you don't like it, here, leave it. It's like, no. Because I'm one of those people that I want canned patriotism to go away. I'm not going to wave a flag. Never will be that guy. Because that matters a lot less to me than the community I live in and how I want it to improve. Not just for me, for my kids, for the people who are in the houses next to me, and for the people across town who, I don't care what their situation is. I don't care what's their fault. If they need help, that way, the last thing that they should be hearing is, what about your insurance? No. You can call me a communist or whatever, that's fine. Because ultimately I ran myself democratic socialist, and I think that's the way it should be. They should be able to count on getting help when they need it. Absolutely. It shouldn't be up to a few kind people who are willing to donate and donate and donate. It should be something that we as communities take seriously as part of our overall health. Our health should include our neighbor's health. It should be something we're concerned with. That is something that I won't budge on. In any case, yeah, we might get some content about when I'm actually able to go work out again and shit like that. It's not going to be anything I do lives on. It'll probably just be little video snippets. But for sure, I'm going to be much more involved in the art spaces. Um, yeah, that's one thing that I'm actually looking forward to, having the extra energy that a fella of my age, because I'm not gonna play. I'm much older than many broadcasters. Initially on like Twitch, I'm probably double the age of most. Um, yeah, I'm a granddad, for crying out fucking loud. But um, I'm just hoping that this platform allows me another avenue of expression, and you know, hopefully some knowledge that somebody else is open to hearing, perspective, all that good stuff. And I've got a couple of dogs here that are like harassing the hell out of me. Um, but yeah, that's where my man's at right now, and I think it's a very good place. And you know, we'll go over some notes on my journey, everything from when I started to think about this many years ago, uh, and the things that kind of drove me to it, things I missed out on with my kids and with my extended family. Um, when you're as big as I got, it's kind of hard to want to go places. When you're having a case out, you know, is the bathroom going to be big enough for me? Or are the chairs going to hold me? Shit like that. And um, that's not to say that I don't feel for people who are in that same position right now, because I do. I think that spaces do need to be more accommodating, um, without question, because reality is accommodation, um, and inclusion is just a very much a love thy neighbor sort of thing. Um, and if you don't see it that way, I'm sorry, but you're probably an asshole. So, we'll be going over some of that kind of stuff. Um, but for right now, I'm not going to cheat anybody out of any more of their hard earned time. Was just kind of a lack. There we go. And I'm just making sure that all my platforms are going. Yeah, everything's pretty beaut. But I think I'm going to want to get into just looking at some videos and, maybe put a couple of lines on Samuel here, because I think dipping this toe back in is going to help me get motivated to do more broadcasts and everything that I was talking about, getting the new equipment, maybe getting a couple of new cameras that are better for doing this. Yeah, I think it could be some good stuff. And frankly, I'm pretty excited about it. Very exciting time in life. That said, if I get close enough, you can see there's a lot of work to do with the ghetto headset and the ghetto glasses. 'Twas not 5 minutes before I started this broadcast that the super glue and tape went onto these bad boys. I lost my other glasses, so I had to pull out the hood pair and make them work. So I am looking forward to those that better pay, because I want new glasses, damn it. Ultimately, I would rather have LASIK or some shit, because I actually hate wearing glasses, but I do like to see. So call me crazy wanting to do paintings and shit. Having good vision, kind of a must have. All right, I just Kermited everybody with a little bit of tea. Oh, this is Snapple, zero sugar. I used to hate the peach tea. Now I'm pretty good with it. But let's get into some video, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and shut the music. And we're going to go with good old Park Rose Permaculture. I've been watching her for a few years. She's smarter than heck, and she's got a good beat on things. I'm in agreement with the vast majority of stuff she says. On occasion, she can get a little bit, and this is the thing where I diverge with a lot of progressives right now. I think one of the most authentic people in American politics at the moment is probably Graham Plantner. And people are like, well, he did this and that. You can't trust him with his wife. He was blah blah blah. And we're like, well, yeah, he did that. He admitted to it. He didn't like avoid it or make excuses. He came with a very realistic, acceptable explanation about that shit. And it's something that I think that people should take with a grain of salt. Because honestly, if you're throwing up your hands about that and saying, well, we got to have standards, I think maybe you haven't been paying fucking attention, man. If you are liberal leaning, at the very least. Did I lose my goddamn pen? Am I breaking out a fresh one? Oh my god. Alright, I guess I'm breaking out the fresh one. Some bitch. But, as I was going into a bit of a rant about Senor Plattner and people who are fucking clutching their pearls about him, talking about we gotta have standards. This guy was a womanizer somehow. I listened to them on The View, hemming and hawing about, you know, this awful, awful status of him having had, sexting or whatever, and some girl called him rough, one of his exes. And I'm not saying that's great. I am not. But this man has not only admitted in a very sensible and sober way and explained about shit. And I think when he does that, the parts that he does deny, he's got a little more credibility to deny them because he takes ownership of the large, vast majority of things that came out with sober explanations, you know, not really saying excuses for it, but saying, yeah, I was in a bad place. I had come back from some tours where I saw things and I was in quite a bad way. I think anybody with a little bit of horse sense can understand that if they're not going to go for all the sensationalist turds like I heard them roasting him on The View. And he hasn't backed down from any interviewers. He hasn't done any of that. However, what he has done, really, when it comes to his platform, is stick to his frickin' guns. He hasn't flip-flopped on anything. And I want you guys to remember, if you are liberal leaning, which I most certainly am, I am very much in that democratic socialist camp. One of those people who, I guess in Texas, I would be classified as a terrorist for um, spreading terrorist propaganda or some shit. But I think you got to take stock of what's going on right now. I don't think that many of the left who are clinging to what was are quite just looking around and taking stock of what the fuck is going on. The other side, and when I say the other side, I mean your neighbors who perhaps don't know any better or weren't betting on there being an active coup, which is what this whole presidency is right now, an active coup happening and being funded with your tax dollars was going to happen. They didn't think it would get this far. And, you know, I've watched a lot of people allow themselves to be convinced that what's going on is what needed to happen years ago. When in fact, that same person years ago would have been appalled at what actually has happened if they were watching news that was unbiased, if they, didn't have these ultra right wing religious nationalists that are trying to, I mean, for crying out loud, they're putting Bible passages in public school curriculum in Texas. Any reason? This whole separation of church and state thing has fallen out of fashion. Um, and they can paint, well, it doesn't work, American family, blah, blah, blah. And most of those points, you can argue them into a corner on because what they're saying are the reasons for having it that way are typically not valid. They're fucking fantasy land arguments. But, and that's just here on the home front. Hundreds of videos of these ugly ICE attacks with them taking people who initially they were like, oh, we're getting the worst of the worst, because I guess Obama wasn't. He had more deportations than Trump in either presidency. And they weren't really on the news because he was just having them do their jobs for the most part. I'm sure there's video back from the Obama presidency where there are some douchebags that were doing something, but there were very rare instances. And people will say, well, back then people didn't have as many camera phones, shit like that. You can miss me with that shit. You can definitely miss me with that because there were plenty of videos that went viral back then. People all had camera phones. That's been pretty much it for, we're going on 20 years for that whole construct in our society. Everybody having goddamn camera phones. They can record. They have been recording. Shit. For 20 years now, half of the stuff on the news is from video that's been posted to a social website. So miss me with that shit, please. Um, yeah. So looking at the reality of the situation, if you're looking at a good candidate that has owned mistakes that were not the typical mistakes of a politician, these were the mistakes of a normal person. And you're saying, well, we can't have that. And you're not looking at what his opposition has been doing the last horrible year here in this country, where people are being kidnapped with absolutely no observance of, well, I just forgot all my words because the ADHD kicked in. Absolutely no observance of the necessary warrants and things like that. No recognition of constitutional duties that need to be undertaken with these kind of, and people will say, oh, well, that does, that doesn't count for, you know, illegal immigrants. Um, that's the thing that made the U.S. different, was because it did. It did. Freedom of speech doesn't matter if you're a citizen. In this country, you have it. Illegal searches and seizures doesn't matter if you're a citizen. In this country, your property is your property. Your identity is your identity. Your right to seek legal counsel, that is inalienable. And this hijacking, it's large, it's ugly, and when you think about candidates like him, they're not perfect, but they are 100% on the side of the people here. And when I say 100% on the side of the people, you can analyze that a little bit. A lot of the Democratic Socialists who are getting elected, yeah, they're educated. That doesn't mean they're part of the elite. And I don't know what people's definition of the elite is. My definition of the elite is somebody who can buy a fucking presidential campaign. Somebody whose money can influence television stations. That's what I'm looking at. If somebody is throwing hundreds of millions of dollars towards something, yeah, they didn't get that hundreds of millions of dollars through hard work and grit. They didn't build shit. What they've done is they've got a bunch of other hundreds of millions of dollars people that, for now the past few years, they just see something that is going to attract the sharks, stock traders and stuff. They make an offering, they get investors, and they just fucking float on that cloud of imaginary money that gives them all this fucking worth. And it is stupid because when they invest that money in these public offerings, a very significant portion is not their money that's getting invested. This is money collectively that comes from us in large part. This is money that we make. This is our retirement accounts. This is everything that generations have worked for being fucking played with by monopoly guys. And so if that doesn't worry you, I think, yeah, I may have just ultimately talked my way out of going into Park Rose permaculture. But long and short, with Democratic Socialists, motherfuckers better start getting over it. Because if you hadn't looked at what happened, there was an ass whooping. Because Democrats don't want to get over old shit. And we want to have somebody like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries giving all this money to a certain ally that is actively committing genocide, really leading us by the nose into a conflict that nobody wanted and nobody's going to see any benefit from. And yeah, get your heads out of your ass. It is time to go a little bit harder. It is time to take the gloves off. And it's really time to, like, if you have doubts for whatever reason, look at the alternative. A year ago, you didn't think it was going to be here. You didn't think it would get that bad. Guess what? It's going to get fucking worse. It really will. We haven't been hit yet. We're going to get hit. And whether that's by Iran or it's by a false flag, we're going to get hit. So keep that in mind as we're cruising into the 4th tomorrow. But let's go ahead and listen to a little bit from Park Rose. I haven't seen this yet.
I'm going to stop saying that change is on the horizon because I don't think that that's true. I don't think that change is on the horizon. I think that change is here right now. The change is happening right now, and we are all driving it. The American people are enacting change right now. Last night, 29-year-old Democratic Socialist Milot Quiros won her primary in Colorado, unseating a 15-term incumbent establishment Democrat. Milot was born in Ethiopia. She's an immigrant to this country. She's a lawyer who lost her job for speaking up on the genocide in Palestine.
This is about something so much bigger than this moment, than one moment. This is a movement.
That like actually has my voice, has my beliefs in Congress.
It's made us so happy and we're so excited.
Her win in Colorado last night was nothing short of historic and shows that the Democratic Socialists in this country and their platform of wanting universal health care, wanting to end the genocide in Gaza, wanting to create an America that works for working class people, that appeals far beyond Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, and New York City with Zoran Mamdani and the Democratic Socialists who won their primaries there last week. It really breaks the narrative that the platform of DSA candidates is too fringe for most Americans. Justice Democrats said of her win that she has built a movement that inspired Denverites to remember that they themselves have the power to transform what kind of Democratic Party they want to be represented by. These young progressive candidates are an obvious threat to the power that runs the Democratic Party. I've said for a long time that the Democrats have a gerontocracy problem. I mean, the Republicans do too, but the Democrats are run by old, wealthy, entrenched politicians who are run by foreign governments and dark money. They have their comfortable positions of power and they don't want to give them up. And so the people are saying, remember, we have the power. We will decide who represents us. I think the American people are really starting to believe for themselves once again, or maybe for the first time, that we deserve representation in government, we're starting to be, I think, less cynical about the state of American politics. And we're starting to push ourselves to a point where we want change, we want representation, we need and deserve something different. Change is not on the horizon, it's here. We're not on the cusp of change. We are making change happen right now. And it's going to be, I think, very scary and very tense over the next several months, because those who currently have their claws in our government and control the levers of power and have all of the money, right, they're not going to let go willingly. And I think that we all know now that it's not just Republicans who are incredibly undemocratic, are hell-bent on unfreedom, hell-bent on corruption. Like, they aren't going to walk away quietly when they lose in free and fair elections. So it's going to be really tense. But also, it's the establishment entrenched Democrats who like their comfort and power. They like their position of controlled opposition. You know that when the corporate Democrats, the corporate media, the billionaires, foreign governments, and all the Republicans and Fox News and the president are flipping out over these candidates winning their primaries, you know that they're doing the right thing and that we're on the right track. But I do want to acknowledge that it's going to be scary times coming up, because they're trying to scare you. And also, Donald Trump is trying to incite political violence against these folks running for office, because he's scared, because he knows that they have the power of the people behind them.
And as you saw with the communists elected in New York City recently, they're communists, they're not social democrats. They want to completely destroy the traditional American way of life. Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. Many of these people, I looked at some of the people that got elected the other night in New York. They're people that want to destroy our country. They hate our country. They hate our people. They hate the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is in big trouble, because this isn't stopping with New York. This is going on. It's too easy to get elected, giving everything away. Too easy to get elected. Very dangerous. These are not social Democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists. They're godless communists. All communists are godless. They don't believe in God. This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country.
Donald Trump's popularity is like 27%. He doesn't have the power. He doesn't have a mandate from the people. He doesn't have any of that authority behind him. Early on, when his popularity was like 54%, corporations would bend the knee more willingly. All of the Republicans were more willing to do his bidding. They were more afraid of him, because power comes from the people. And so when you have the people behind you, you can be that bully. You can be more forceful and coercive. But the people have withdrawn from Donald Trump, and they're moving in a new direction. We are moving in a new direction, and we are looking for representation, and we're over and exploit and abuse us.
Do you think Americans are ready for a democratic socialist in the White House?
I think Americans are ready for a politics that delivers for them. You think about FDR's four freedoms: freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. These are things that today some might say could never reach the White House. And yet we know that to be a democratic socialist is to believe that democracy must extend beyond the ballot box to the rest of our lives. It's to make the choice that you fight for working people, that you don't debate whether someone deserves dignity, you figure out how to deliver it for them. I know that there are people elsewhere in the country who are facing that same struggle to afford their rent, to afford their groceries, to afford public transit or gas. And they too have been fed a politics that has had very little for them. And so I think that, yes, there is definitely room across this country for a politics that puts working people right at the heart of its focus.
Yeah, when Zoran said that back in April, I was like, oh yeah, the people are definitely ready. They're ready, and they're going to start moving in different ways. And that's what we're seeing play out right now. It doesn't mean that we won't face resistance from those who don't want change, from those who have benefited from the systems of oppression that have made our lives so much more miserable than they need to be. And I completely agree with Zoran that we deserve to live in a country where we have freedom from want and freedom from fear. There's no reason that we can't have that. And I think that people are understanding. And again, it's not just understanding, you guys. You have to believe that you deserve it. You have to believe that these are good things that you have a right to access. And once you internalize that, then you're ready to start moving. You're ready to start taking action. If you believe that your tax dollars should be going to improving your quality of life, if you believe that government should be working for you, if you believe that we private citizens deserve to have public servants who use our tax dollars responsibly to work for the common good, then you start to take actions. You start to move in ways, vote for candidates, organize locally, so that those things that you believe for yourself and your community can become reality. And we're in that moment. We're in that moment where we are believing that the future is not yet written and that we get to be the ones who write it. We're no longer allowing Donald Trump and the fascists and the AI tech bros to future fake us, where they tell us that AI is the future and these data centers have to go everywhere, where Flock is telling us that police state surveillance will be the norm. There will be a camera on every corner, leaning into your backyard, watching what you do and how you and your neighbors interact. We don't have to believe that Donald Trump is going to be the future. The Trumpism is inevitably going to be the future of this country. We don't have to accept that blatant corruption is going to be the norm in this country. Once we believe that we have agency and we have power, because we do, and once we believe that we deserve better things, then we start to envision a future that is made by us, that is shaped by us, that is a hopeful, affirming future. And we're shaping it. We're building it out right now. I think the last year and a half, so much of that time was that initial period of shock, where you're overwhelmed, you're flooded with grief, you're traumatized on a daily basis, and you have not built up those defenses. A lot of what we've done is just educate ourselves, insulate ourselves, and try and hold the line as best we can. But we're hardened now. We're wiser. We're more informed. We understand now how change happens. We understand now who is on our side, who is our ally, and who's not so much our ally, who is our out-and-out adversary. Things are clear for us. They're more distilled for us. We're aware of what we need to be doing. And so we're starting to make those moves in a different way. I'm sorry that we had to go through all of this to become less naive and to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with those points more. It's pretty much people got to get active, and you know, the cynicism is hard to get over. It is definitely hard. I know, because I'm a very cynical person when it comes to that sort of stuff. But I'm also an idealist. I think that there's been a pretty good-sized war against actual knowledge for quite a while, and I think that that's something that we're going to be dealing with for generations. You know, people saying, you know, blaming teachers for the conditions of, you know, oh shit, well, I'm going to have to clean this up anyway. Oh yeah, I'm really going to have to clean that up, shit. Yep. Well, back to the drawing board on some of this stuff. Fun, fun, fun. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to find some other ways to go about this. Might have to get some more masking tape. But Long and short, I think that if you have family members that are like I don't like politics, that's fine. But they have to understand that at this point, nobody can afford to sit out. Nobody can afford to be uninformed. That's my take on that. So, now that we've had some politics matters, I am completely ready. Well, how about we do this? We're going to go see Bernie. We're going to see why tikka masala has been lying. And we're going to see why Five Guys Burgers melts in your mouth.
Thank you all for joining me. In the midst of these really crazy times in our country, I wanted to say a few words about the political situation as I see it. As I think all of you know, our political revolution, our grassroots movement, was never ever about electing one person to become president of the United States, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else. We are a movement to elect progressives at every level who will fight for a government that represents all of us and not just the 1%. That's what we are about. And last night, I'm happy to tell you that Melat Kiros, a candidate who we supported, many of you contributed to financially, won a huge upset victory in the Denver, Colorado area. She took on a 30-year incumbent member of the House of Representatives, and she won by a 10-point margin. Her opponent had millions and millions of dollars in super PAC funding and greatly outspent her. But Melat did what progressives always do. She ran a strong grassroots campaign with many, many hundreds of volunteers, and she won. When I look at Melat's victory, when I look at the election results in New York City that made Zohran Mamdani the mayor of that city, when I look at recent primary victories in New Jersey, Montana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, rural areas, urban areas, when I look at Abdul El Sayed's lead in the polls in Michigan, when I look at Graham Platner running a fantastic grassroots campaign and defeating a sitting Democratic governor in Maine for the Democratic nomination there, when I look at Peggy Flanagan's dynamic and aggressive campaign in Minnesota, when I look at the huge turnouts for our Fight Oligarchy rallies and No King events, I mean, millions of people all over the country coming out to these events. When I look at a billionaire's tax qualifying for the ballot in California, which is no easy task. When I look at worker organizing campaigns sprouting up and succeeding across the country. When I look at public support for trade unions at an all-time high, I believe that it may just be possible that this country is on the verge of the political revolution we have fought for such a long time. Now, I do not have a crystal ball to tell you what will happen next, but last night and the last several months have given me hope and optimism, and I hope it does the same for you. It has given me hope that all across this country, people understand that given the dangerous and unprecedented moment in which we are living, we need to rethink, rebuild, and fundamentally reform the Democratic Party. We need a party that is not just in opposition to Trump and his disastrous policies. That is vitally important. And progressives are going to lead the way in opposition to Trump. But that is not enough. We need a party that is prepared to take on the greed and ideology of the oligarchs who now control the economic, media, and political life of our nation. And we need to create an economy and a government that works for all of us and not just the few. We need a Democratic Party that opens its doors to new people, new energy, and new ideas. We need a Democratic Party that is truly a grassroots party, where decisions are made from the bottom on up, not from the top on down. We need a Democratic Party which becomes the political home of the working class of our country and young people, black and white, Latino and Asian, American and Native American, all Americans. And here is the very good news. The agenda that we are fighting for is the agenda that the American people want. Now, I know that our opponents say this is a far left agenda, nobody likes it. Well, guess what? The vast majority of the people are with us because they understand that our healthcare system is broken, it's dysfunctional, it is wildly expensive, and that we must pass Medicare for all because healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. At a time when 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, the American people know that we must raise the minimum wage to a living wage so that no worker in America lives in poverty. At a time when corporation after corporations operates illegally by making it impossible for workers to join unions, the American people understand that unions are the means by which workers get protection, and we must make it easier for workers to join unions. And I don't care whether you're a conservative Republican, a socialist, a moderate, or whatever you may be. Everybody knows that our current campaign finance system is corrupt and that it is dominated by billionaires and their super PACs who buy and sell politicians. Everybody knows that we must end Citizens United, get super PACs out of the political process, and that we need to move toward public funding of elections. And at a time when we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of this country, we must demand that the wealthy and the billionaire class start paying their fair share of taxes. And right now, when you have a president of the United States who wants to increase military spending by $500 billion, if you can believe it, $500 billion more on top of $1 trillion, the American people know that what we have got to do is not only cut the bloated military budget, but stop these endless and horrific wars that we're seeing right now in Iran, in Lebanon, and elsewhere. The American people, from coast to coast, finding it very hard to afford housing. And our young people today are going to get their first home, if they ever get their first home, 12 years later than their parents. So what must we do? We've got to build millions of units of low income and affordable housing. And right now, in the midst of a terrible and dangerous heat wave right here in the United States, which followed the heat wave that took thousands of lives in Europe, we know that climate change is an existential threat to this planet. We've got to take on the fossil fuel industry, and we've got to move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And I think every day, more and more people are understanding the dangers that AI and robotics have for our country, and believe, as we do, that we must make AI and robotics work for all of us, not just the billionaire owners of big tech. So I think there is a growing consensus that our agenda is the agenda of the American people, and that's why we are winning elections. So where do we go from here? What do we do? Well, short term, in my view, we must build on our extraordinary successes by doing everything possible to win the August Democratic U.S. Senate primaries in Michigan and Minnesota for Abdul El-Sayed and Peggy Flanagan. So right now, within the next month, there are going to be two really important Senate primaries in Michigan and Minnesota. We've got to do everything we can to support Abdul and Peggy. And on top of that, we have many, many progressive candidates running for Congress, and they're running for down ballot positions, and we've got to be on their side and get their backs as well. And then after the primaries end, our job is to build the strongest grassroots political movement this country has ever seen for a general election.
Sorry, Bernie.
Let me be very, very
just thinking
clear
about how
this.
I'm going to have to buy some painter's tape.
The wealthiest people in this country, the billionaires in America, they have unlimited, underlying the word unlimited, unlimited amounts of money to spend to elect right-wing Republican candidates. All right? We're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Money doesn't mean anything to them. Their super PACs are going to be flush with cash. And the only way we take on that money is through an unprecedented, strong grassroots movement, which means that we've got to knock on millions of doors from coast to coast, reaching out to working families, reaching out to the young, reaching out to the disaffected. So that's what we got to do in the general election. And then in January 2027, after we gain control over the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, we begin the process of transforming our country and doing all of the things that working families know must be done. So we got a lot on that agenda. Let's get it done, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Let's talk about chicken tikka masala.
Well, that was quick. And we're straight into the chicken tikka masala that's been lying. But I think overall, when people listen to those candidates, including like Bernie, most people that are able to take stock are going to feel a lot more like them. Grassroots campaigns, yeah, absolutely. You know, stuff funded by us. I think for the next presidency, one of the things that needs to be just absolutely, well, shit, not even the presidency. It should be something that we push for with our representatives that are there now. Like Citizens United needs to be gone. The ones that are going to push back most are going to be the billionaires. And there's going to be certain little political advocacy campaigns that are going to put up a stink. But really, you know what? Fuck them. We should be suing those motherfuckers daily. Drain that goddamn swamp. Because a lot of the advertising they pay for is I mean, it's not even based on fact. It's culture war stuff. You know, we have an ad running right now in Eastern Washington for a candidate who is going to not allow men and women's sports. I'm sorry. If you think that's a rampant problem, head out of your ass, please. All right. On to the fuckery of tikka masala. Why are you lying?
A dish that is unequivocally Indian, right? Wrong. What if I were to tell you that chicken tikka masala is to Indian food what General Tso's chicken is to Chinese food? It's not a recipe somebody's Grammy passed down, right? It's something engineered, in this case by South Asian immigrants in the United Kingdom. People who took their 1,000-year-old cooking traditions and created something new to survive in their new home. So this is the story of one of Earth's most famous dishes, and believe me when I say it's nuts. But not as nuts as how tasty the chicken tikka masala that we're going to make later is. Well, maybe, I don't know, I'll let you be the judge of that. The full story of how Britain and the East India Company ended up...
I'm sorry, man. I don't want that whole lesson. I'll watch that later, at my leisure.
All right, y'all, so we got to talk about this. Zohran
Wait.
Mamdani...
What happened to my tasty burgers?
Let's talk about chicken tikka masala, a dish that is unequivocally Indian, right?
Thank you all for fact funding and greatly outside.
There's a reason why Five Guys doesn't taste like any other fast food burger. And it's not the toppings, and it's not the buns.
This will be
For the longest
satisfying.
time, I've wondered what exactly they do to make their burgers so tender
Jesus
and
Christ,
satisfying.
bro,
I've
is
come to
loud.
realize one specific thing they do on the grill that no one talks about. How do I know this? I watch training videos. From the formation of the patties to how they are cooked, how they're assembled, and even how they're wrapped. It's the little details that allows Five Guys to set itself apart. And today I'm showing you how it's done, and more specifically, how I order my burger. This is the Five Guys Bacon Cheeseburger at home. Now the first thing is the beef, and they use 80/20 chuck. I've got some prime chuck here, the best freshly ground beef I could find at the market. And we're going with 3.5 ounce patties. And see how loose the fibers of the meat are? That's important. Then what we're gonna do is just gently roll it into a ball, no pressure. We're gonna put it on a parchment, on a sheet tray right over here. That's why fresh ground beef is important,
burger basics.
because otherwise you get that industrial stuff. It's packed tightly. You're never gonna get a tender burger out of it. Again, we're being very gentle, very light, barely having it bind together. Then we take another one, the way they stack it on top of each other, and then they smash it into patties. Not technically a smash burger, there's a smash involved, and the smash is also sort of what makes it special. Now, of course, you could just take the patty and just smash it into a little patty like that. Burger patties are prepped. These are gonna go in the fridge until we're ready to cook them. Now, to me, a Five Guys burger is like not really fitting into a fast food burger. My favorite fast food burger is In-N-Out, but one of my favorite burgers in general, anywhere, for any circumstance, is a Five Guys burger. One of the reasons is fun toppings. And with those toppings, there's a lot of different variety you can have. And personally, I'm a bacon cheeseburger guy with jalapenos and cooked onions. And remember, a cheeseburger is 2 patties, a little cheeseburger is 1 patty. We're gonna go with the regular cheeseburger. We cut enough onions for about 2 burgers. Just run the knife along those lines running across the onion, and we're just gonna give them a dice. And for me, it's very rare you see jalapeno offered at a burger spot. We're gonna go in, thinly sliced jalapeno. Then of course we need bacon. Now, we're gonna be using a griddle. Besides the burgers, we just need to cook the bacon nice and crisp. And since I like to cook bacon,
yeah, I'll have to get some of this line work later with some tapes. I might have to redo some of the
Now, as I've shown you over the last 8
stenciling.
years, I'm a bit of a stickler for quality ingredients. But the sad reality is most markets have a limited selection of quality meats and seafoods, and most of them of questionable quality, at least in my opinion. But I've got a solution. Our sponsor today, Good Shop's essentially going to guarantee quality American-sourced meats and seafoods delivered to your door or your money.
Bro, I don't want your
Good Shop
commercial.
is a fully customizable seafood to the chicken. Everything in land, and you can choose from over 100 cuts.
All right, we
portable
get
piece
it.
of meat. Easy to
It
cook,
looks good.
hard to screw up. So confident in use
Holy
the code
shit, bro.
50NAC plus free shipping
Oh
at
my
the render.
God.
So by the time that fat's rendered, the bacon is also crispy. Bit of a foolproof trick for bacon. We're gonna keep an eye on those while we get started on our onion. Get a pan on medium-high heat and add a little bit of butter to the pan. Once that butter starts sizzling, then we can go ahead and add in our diced onions. Season with salt, and we're just gonna let those cook down, get nice and caramelized, nice and soft and aromatic. After a few minutes, that one side of the bacon should be getting slightly brown. We can give them a flip.
What's with the
Top guys
bacon?
are cooking a little slower, so I'll let them go a little longer. Remember, there's no heat from here on out. One thing to note about the bacon at Five Guys is it's definitely more on the crispier side. I actually think Five Guys deep fries their bacon, but you know, we're not gonna do that. Now, whenever you think some are done, you can transfer them off the griddle and let them drain on a paper towel. Our onions are looking good. They're brown, they're caramelized, they've softened. Once the onions are cooked, we're gonna get them into a bowl. For the buns, we've got a potato sesame seed roll. They make their buns custom to them, so for us, short of making our own, this is gonna be basically the best thing you're gonna get on the market. Something that's not gonna kind of crumble under all the pressure of the ingredients. And then, very importantly, we're gonna need a foil sheet. First step is to toast the buns. Now, Five Guys actually uses 2 griddles, one for the burger patties and then one at a lower temperature for the buns. And we got our griddle around 325. That should be enough to nice and gently brown the buns. When we get our burgers on, we're gonna raise the heat. Once the buns are toasted, we prep the buns. On both sides, I like to go with ketchup. They do 3 rounds. Next up, yellow mustard. If you don't like yellow mustard, just trust. I don't like yellow mustard either, but it does something. 2 circles. We're going with the jalapenos first. They always put a decent amount on. Next, the onions. And then on the bottom bun again, we're building everything. It's usually a good amount of bacon on there. On here, you would put the wet stuff, like the lettuce, the pickles, the tomatoes.
And I would only be able to eat the
patty. The patty goes on here, and we close it up. Now we cook the burgers.
But this is pretty satisfying, seeing this guy
nice and hot.
grilling away.
400 degrees. Now we're gonna do 2 patties. First patty, a gentle press just to flatten out that surface. Same thing with the next patty. Now here's the very specific process. We let that sit on that side for 30 seconds. We're first creating a sear on that first side. We're not going to salt it just yet. We're gonna give them a flip. And this is when we're going to smash it. You're almost gonna take that sear and then break it apart. And this is what I believe contributes to that incredible
gives you that
tenderness.
crispy.
And we're not smashing them super flat. We're just shaping them. We're spreading it out, breaking that crust up. Then we're gonna move it back to the hot spot. Now we're gonna season with salt. We're gonna cook it on that side for another 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, flip, cook for another 30 seconds, and then add the cheese to 1 patty. After 30 seconds, add 1 patty on top of the cheese, and that's ready to be served. Then it gets placed right on top of the bacon, put a top on, and then we need the final step, which is to wrap it in the foil. And this is going to almost rest it, steam the bun, make everything sort of homogeneous. It's sort of the iconic aspect of these burgers. After a few minutes, and that's what a Five Guys burger looks like when you open it. Cheese sort of like frayed at the edges from sticking to the foil. That's pretty damn close. I love a Shake Shack in and out.
Oh, that's pretty good.
All those kind of fast food style burgers, but this scratches a different itch. All the flavors, the sauces, the textures. It's nice. Recipe's gonna be down in the description. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.
Well, I gotta say, it looked pretty good. Looked pretty good. I don't know. I'm pretty bad at cooking hamburgers. I keep trying to use a flat iron that we have. It's like the electric griddle, and the temperature on those things are shit. Like, you really can't. And also, I think I'm using a burger that's much too lean, and throwing butter on that is just, it's not a good way to be. But also, I think the temperature I've been using is way too high for how lean the burgers are. I had to learn a lesson and actually lower the temp of the burger and then use the burger press. So that doesn't much matter because I'm on to turkey burgers now. So I'll probably try to finish that other half here in a few minutes before I go to bed. Now people will be like, don't eat before you go to bed. I'm like, shut up, man. Trying to live. Know what I'm saying? But anyway, I think I'm going to have to call it. We're just after 10. And yeah, got a little bit of content in. Please forgive my skibbity. Because, you know, it's all adjustment. You know, adjusting to the new, like I said, first day actually eating real food. First day back on my super necessary medication, and first day back in the saddle for this. I've got other projects going on that I'm going to go over in detail. I've got materials on the way, and you know, I think before I actually went off about a month ago, I was going on about getting my store back up, and I do have the store back up. Not everything I have in stock is there, but I am going to make some prints. I am going to get some frames, and I'll be selling those. So if you're local to me, I can get it to you. If you want to order it, I'm going to have packing materials shortly for that stuff. So yeah, let's see what we can get done here very soon. I don't know when I'll be on again. Definitely not tomorrow. It's the 4th, and it's a work day, and I work a double the next day, so definitely not the day after. But yeah, this is something I'm looking forward to getting back to. I'll probably be back in about a week, so perhaps next Friday seems the proper day to be doing anything. So thanks a lot for anybody who tuned in. I sure appreciate it. Hopefully you're keeping clear of all the national dramas that happen, because regardless of all the direction I went tonight, yeah, wherever you're at, I hope you're all keeping safe. Nobody is violating your rights, and hopefully your situation is good, and you're living the dream. So in any case, I'm going to cut out because it's time to finish this little half a burger that I was having, half a burger patty, bunless, with just the tiniest smidge of guac on that bad boy. But I'll be thinking of you folks while I'm enjoying that and getting on to bed. So thanks for being on. You guys have a good night, and I will see you next week.